Wreaths are one of the best artworks that you can paint with roses. This round-shaped garland, usually filled with flowers and foliage, is something that is so irresistible to paint using watercolor. For the next two lessons, we will learn how to paint a well-balanced wreath composition. I'll guide you with a step-by-step process from planning, choosing colors, and of course, the actual painting. Let's start with the half wreath. For this project, we will start with our main subject, which is the rose, followed by the general shape of the wreath, then the secondary subjects, which are the rose buds, and then we will finish it by adding the details. For our main subject, I'll use the color maroon from Nevskaya Palitra, and we will start with the center of the rose first. So I'll be creating the core using a concentrated mixture of my color. Then I'm gonna switch my brush to a size 6 round brush to create a bigger petal. As usual, this is just a combination of C strokes, thin curved strokes, and end strokes. Just play with these strokes, but be careful not to overdo it, and at the same time, be carefree. Be mindful of the strokes that you're creating, make your strokes loose, yet control the size of your flower so that it won't look imbalanced. I'm gonna switch to a bigger brush this time, and it's gonna be size 8 so I can create bigger petals. While my layer is still cold, meaning not too wet yet not too dry, I'll add a bit of depth to my rose by creating strokes in the color of my petals. Just a little. I don't want to overdo this as I'll add more details later on anyway. While waiting for my initial layer to dry, I'm now gonna add the leaves. I just mix under sea green and Van Dyke brown in here. I'm just dragging my brush to create a leaf-like image. When creating a leaf, I don't really do it in a clean way. I just stamp my brush or paint it loosely because in this style of painting, as long as you made something green, it will always be perceived as a leaf. So you don't really need to define your stroke that much. Now it's time to make the general shape of our wreath. Using a very light mixture of green, I'll paint some leaves and follow the pencil guide that I initially created. I'm gonna leave some space for the rose buds, which we're gonna paint after this. Now it's time to paint the rosebuds. Using raw umber, I'm gonna paint the rosebud here. This is very easy. Just paint the top part using a slanted thin stroke and then drag your brush to paint the body. I left a bit of white space to represent some highlights. Okay, we're gonna repeat it on this side this time. As you can see, we are done with the general shape of our wreath already. However, it looks flat and lifeless, and that's where the details will come in. For my first detail, I mix a more concentrated mixture of green and brown to create a darker tone leaf. I made this to create an illusion that some leaves are at the back part, which is represented by the lightest shade of green, and some are in the middle, which is represented by these greens. And also some are in front, which I will paint on a darker shade of green later on. Just adding leaves on different areas. As you can see, there's a nice bleeding of green on my petal. This is a nice effect that you can also add on your creation. I'm not literally painting over my initial layer. I just want some areas to be covered, but also I want some areas to be visible still. Finishing off here. Now on my darkest shade of green, I mix more green to create this shade. And same thing, I'm spreading this color all over my composition to create depth. Adding more greens here. Be carefree, guys, because the more you control your hand, the more it won't look natural. Okay, now let's add the details for a rosebud. I'm going to use a very concentrated mixture of raw umber and just add the details here. Simple, right? So I'm going to add another one on this rosebud. Very subtle detail because this is just a secondary subject. Now to our main event, the rose. I'm mixing a concentrated mixture of maroon and using a small brush, which is number 2 round brush. We're gonna redefine our core first. What that means is we are gonna create another set of core as if we're gonna put it on top of the first one that we initially created, because the one we initially created is a bit lighter now. As you can see, watercolor, when it dries up, it gets a little bit lighter. So it's very important to add another layer every time if you want to redefine something. Adding C strokes here. So now I'm gonna soften these strokes using a clean wet brush. As you can see, the hard edges are gone now. So continue adding details until you've added depth on all the areas. We're just painting one big rose here, so this one is very easy. Also, guys, do not overdo your depth. Add it on some areas, but not on all areas, because your rose might look like a ranunculus if you did a lot of depth. Okay, we are